Hello, I'm Chris Nicholls, and today I'm answering your question, what is IGCSE? Easy. It's the International General Certificate of Secondary Education. In the UK, we have the GCSE, which is the General Certificate of Secondary Education, of course, and outside the UK, it's international. GCSE examinations are taken at age 16 by all students in England. GCSE and IGCSE are 2-year examination courses which run from the beginning of year 10 to the end of year 11. In other words, they finish normally at age 16. IGCSEs and GCSEs are not university entrance level qualifications. That's because they are designed for students to take at age 16, and university entrance level qualifications are normally designed for students to take at age 18. IGCSEs are separate qualifications in separate subjects. So it's not a kind of global baccalaureate type qualification. You end up after your IGCSE courses with 9 or 10 separate IGCSE qualifications. Although it's a 2-year course, the examinations themselves almost all take place in May and June of year 11. And the results of those examinations are normally made public around the 12th of August each year. And finally, in my quick overview, IGCSE is not spelled with a small I. It's not like an iPhone, it's not an Apple product. All the letters are capital, IGCSE, all capitals. So let me give you an example and we'll just walk through the example. The example we're going to use is biology. That's one of the subjects which is compulsory. In other words, all students in our school will be taking biology. Here I'm showing you a screenshot from Google, and in the screenshot you can see a range of IGCSE biology textbooks. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because I want to make the point that IGCSE is big business, and it's big business because it's very, very widely used across the world. And that means that top publishing companies produce very, very strong and very reliable textbooks for teachers and students to follow during the course of the 2 years of their IGCSE. Now, as you know, we've told you enough times, a good teacher is not a teacher that follows a textbook slavishly, but it's very good to have textbooks as resources because they are full of useful information. Now on this slide I've also circled a couple of other books which strictly speaking aren't textbooks, and they're revision guides. Now revision guides are also created to help us to get to the best exam results we can, but they're designed for students rather than for teachers. We don't teach from revision guides, but particularly towards the end of the 2-year course, students often benefit from having a look through a revision guide because it's going to get their mind clear, it's going to get their head straight on exactly what they should have been studying and what they ought to know and how they ought to go about doing the exams. So it's a useful tool for students particularly to move beyond just the teacher in the classroom and become a little bit more independent. This is the Cambridge Exam Board's IGCSE biology syllabus. Now you can see what I've circled on this screen, top left, is numbers 1 out of 61. This is a 61-page document. It's freely available on the internet. Anybody can go and have a look at it. And what's really good about this and what's really good about the course is it's very, very well organized. So it gives you a great deal of necessary and useful information about the course content, and about the examinations themselves. For example, there's the content overview. That's just page 8 of that document. And you can see IGCSE biology. There are 21 different topics to be studied. I've actually circled number 10 there, diseases and immunity. And if you flick through the syllabus to page 25, you will see the details of diseases and immunity for this syllabus. In other words, these are the specific things that will be covered during the course of the 2 years and will be examined at the end of those 2 years. So it's a really good document. It also has clear information about the examinations which come at the end and the different kinds of examinations that you might be encountering. Of course, when it's biology, it's a science, so there's not just written papers, there is also a practical exam which takes place in our lab at the same time at the end of the 2-year course. They also publish past papers, so you could go in, again, this is freely available on the internet, you can go in and you can have a look exactly at what last year's paper or 2 years ago's paper was. Now, of course, the paper will be different next year and the year after, but it's really good for practice and it's really good for understanding that there are no secrets about these exams. They're really clear. And those papers are good. There's an example. Again, that's a biology IGCSE paper from a couple of years ago. You will see there that the questions, of course, are written on the paper and the answers are handwritten by the student on the paper as well. When the exam finishes after 1.5 hours or however long the exam is, the exam finishes officially and the people in charge of the exam in our school then collect up the papers. They take them straight to our central examinations office in our school. They are put into envelopes and shipped back to the UK. And in the UK, they are marked and graded very, very carefully in order to ensure accuracy. Now, when the exam results do come out in August after year 11, you get a list of subjects and a list of grades. Now, there's 2 lists here. They're basically the same thing, actually, but the IGCSEs used to be graded always from A star to G. A star was the top grade, and then A and B were also good passing grades, and C was a kind of borderline passing grade. Recently, we've been moving bit by bit to a new grading system, which is a 9-to-1 grading system, where 9 is the highest grade, and then 8, 7, 6, and 5 are passing grades, and 4 is again a kind of borderline pass grade. And you can see here that this student, a student, has a variety of different subjects that they have got IGCSE results in, particularly strong in chemistry, business studies, and so forth. Not quite so strong in biology, this one. But you can see that when we look at IGCSE results, we look at individual subjects. Those are important. And we're not bundling them up into one overall grade. We're looking at each grade separately. Now, you may be aware that not all subjects need to be taken by students at IGCSE. Some subjects are compulsory. Here they are: English language and English literature, mathematics, and then the 3 sciences, biology, chemistry, and physics. All of those are taken by all students. And if you're a Thai national, you also have to follow a 2-year course in Thai. The other subjects that you will study, however, are taken from a list of 10 options. You choose 3. You choose 3 out of 10, or put another way, you drop 7 out of 10. Now, after we've made the selections, the option choices, then we create what's known as option blocks. And these blocks are important because that's how the timetable is organized. So, for example, according to the blocks that you can see on the screen here, block C there is art, geography, and computer science. Now, this will not be the actual block, so please don't take screenshots. It's not necessary. Our blocks will be different from this. But if these were the blocks, then you would not be able to study both art and geography because they will be timetabled at the same time. Block C is a specific timetable spot. Now, the good thing for our students is that we don't make the blocks first. So I don't decide what subjects can't go together. We give the students the choice to select 3 from 10. Then we look at all the selections and then we create the timetable around the selections. And almost always that process works very well. So in year 7 and year 8, normally at the beginning of year 7, we do what's known as mid-year testing. Now, mid-year is an organisation which is actually owned by Cambridge International Exam Board, and they produce what is very similar to an IQ test. It's an online test. It takes an hour to do, and we did these tests just before the end of last term with our year 7s and our year 8s. Now, hundreds of thousands of students over the past years have taken these tests. They're tests that you don't prepare for, you can't revise or sort of aim to improve your grades on these tests. They are testing potential much more than what you've studied. But what Mid-Years does is they take the outcomes from these tests, the kind of academic profile that we see from each individual test, and they track those individual students through to their IGCSE performance 5 years later. And then they observe the correlations amongst hundreds of thousands of students. And because the data is so big, they are then able to say with pretty good accuracy that a student in year 7 who has this profile in their mid-years test is most likely to get the following grades in the following subjects in their IGCSEs. It's a very nice system that gives us not totally reliable, but significantly reliable information about potential success in different courses. So the first thing that we will be doing, we'll be doing this quite shortly, I think almost as soon as the students come back on campus, is we'll be looking at that data, the most likely grade data, with each individual student and discussing what we think that means. And that's the beginning of the process of making a selection. And clearly, if mid-year says, you know, you're most likely to get a 3 in geography, a 3 is a fail grade, but you're also most likely to get a 7 in history, if they were to say that, then you'd be starting to think, well, maybe history is a better option for me than geography. So it's that kind of basic start of the conversation, which happens now. In November of year 9, which for our current year 8 is later this year, we do option subject presentations to all students and parents. In other words, each of those 10 option subjects takes time to explain what their subject is like at IGCSE, why you might want to study it, what kind of students are normally successful in that subject, what careers might be suggested by selecting that subject, and so forth. That's a very interesting evening. It happens in November. After that evening, before that, here's an example of some of the paperwork that would come out of that evening. So that's a 3-pager about why you ought to choose business studies, which is a very interesting IGCSE actually. But each subject will produce something very similar to that and would talk you through why they're the right subject to choose. So after that, in late November, early December, then the initial selections are made by the students. And as I say, that's fundamentally a free choice. After those selections are made, we have house tutors and parents may have conversations with students. We may look at those selections and feel, yeah, I'm not sure that's the right subject for you. Maybe you ought to consider studying X instead of Y. So we have conversations. Those conversations can be ongoing within families over the Christmas holidays. And then when we come back in January, we have parents' evenings where parents and students will spend time talking with house tutors and subject teachers in order to move towards the final decision on options. And that final decision is made at the end of January or the beginning of February. We make those decisions at that point so that once we know what subjects students are selecting, then we can ensure that our teacher recruitment, which happens around the same time of year, is getting us the right teachers for the following year. And then, of course, the courses themselves begin at the start of year 10. Now, really, that's all I've got to tell you. It's basic information about IGCSE, and there I am on the screen saying thank you. So thank you for listening, for paying attention. If you have questions, obviously you can't ask them now because I won't hear you, but please send them to me by email and I will do one of two things. Either I will respond individually to you, to your particular question, or I will group the questions together and then I will create a second video with responses to those questions, because some of them may be quite important questions. If you have questions, for example, about Thai IGCSE, and you might do, please do get in touch with me. I can give you a very straightforward response on that. So thank you again for listening, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.